Sir Andrew Kuby, Chairman of the Scottish Credit and Qualification Framework Partnership, Honorary Martin Liao, Chairman of the Hong Kong Council for Accreditation of Academic and Vocational Qualifications, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. First, I would like to extend an apology first, because originally I was supposed to sit through this conference, but due to the need to attend a very important promotion board meeting, I need to disappear at about 3:20. And I have to also take the place of the secretary, Mr. Eddie Ng, at an urgent but very important dinner this evening. So much to my regret, I cannot join some of you, so my apologies. And I feel very honored to be asked to give the first talk in this two-day conference. Gathered in this hall are all people involved in developing qualification framework. In a way, I think it's like a gathering of pilgrims. Why? Because we are people from very different backgrounds, different places and countries, but heading towards the same destination. The destination being a mechanism that can best facilitate learners' mobility and articulation. As we embark on our pilgrimage, each of us carries our own baggage of history. Our contextual backgrounds are very different. And we have been very used to doing things our own way. But through sharing, we know more about one another, and in a reflective manner, when thinking about how others are doing their things in a reflective manner, we know more about ourselves. Enhanced level of understanding will in turn help us consider how may we better walk the untrodden paths ahead. So, to start off this sharing, let me introduce to you what the Hong Kong Qualifications Framework came about, what we have achieved so far, and our plans ahead. The idea of a qualification framework in Hong Kong did not arise in a vacuum. Actually, the idea was born out of our realization of our inadequacies in around the turn of the century. And let me cite examples of our realization of our inadequacies. Seized by the lightning speed of technological advances and the irresistible yet very permeating waves of globalization, we were all too aware that the defining features of the 21st century are two words: changes and uncertainty. And only through our readiness to accept new things, new possibilities, a lifelong learning mindset, and a quest for more and more updated knowledge and skills would we be able to stay afloat. And I must say so, the gravity of the situation faced by Hong Kong is unrivaled internationally. Why? Because we are a very small, externally oriented economy with our trade volume almost 3 times that of our GDP. So our vulnerability to globalization is total. Either we harness it or we are extinguished by it. And according to a population census back in 2001, 37% of our working population at that time had educational attainment at or below junior secondary level. That means they have 9 years or less than 9 years of education. And our manpower projection at around the same time also highlighted a significant manpower mismatch between job requirements and workers' qualifications. So talent grooming has assumed added urgency. At the same time, we saw a proliferation of qualifications in the market with little common benchmarks of quality. Both the learners and the industries were very uncertain about the outcomes of the learning and their relevance to industrial needs. Progression ladders were unclear, And they were, at that time, largely corporations-based rather than industry-based. So big companies may have their own progression ladder linked to requirements in a company, but not on an industry-wide basis. It was against this background that the government announced in 2004 the plan to establish a QF. But of course, we need time to prepare. So with a few years preparation, we officially launched it, as the Secretary has said, in May 2008. The provision of a quality, flexible, and diversified study pathways with multiple entry and exit points is our objective. In our view, a flexible yet very clear pathway map encourages our labor force and our students to pursue with passion their diverse interests and abilities, knowing that with perseverance and hard work, all pathways can lead to a bright future. So studying in the university is just one of the possibilities. Our ultimate aim is for the QF to provide a platform for a seamless transition among school education, training, and lifelong learning. And of course, ultimately, to gainful employment. In addition, the QF would help to bridge the gap between job requirements and training. Training can now be provided with the requirements of the industry in mind. And our students and workforce can also develop their careers through vocational qualifications accepted by the industry. And the possibilities of articulation transcend boundaries. With the Hong Kong QF, we can explore referencing or aligning the Hong Kong qualifications with the QFs in other places. This can greatly enhance international mobility and articulation of talents from Hong Kong, as well as help Hong Kong to attract talents from other places. I shall next highlight the features of the Hong Kong QF and what we have done with it so far. The Hong Kong QF is a 7-level hierarchy covering qualifications in the academic, vocational, and continuing education sectors. The design is deliberate to facilitate a seamless interface between academic and vocational sectors. Each qualification is assigned a level to indicate its position in the hierarchy relative to others, which is determined in accordance with a set of generic level descriptors, specifying the outcome standards expected of the qualification at each level. The Hong Kong QF is also underpinned by a robust quality assurance mechanism to ensure that all the qualifications recognized under the Hong Kong QF are of good quality and standard that the learners and the employers can trust. All the qualifications and their providers, of course, other than those universities which have self-accredited status, otherwise, all the qualifications and their providers have to be accredited by the Hong Kong Council for Accreditation of Academic and Vocational Qualifications, or the Hong Kong CAAVQ in short. It is the sole statutory quality assurance body in Hong Kong. And it is only with recognition from the Hong Kong CAAVQ can the training be recognized under the Hong Kong QF. The QF can realize its potential only if the community makes use of it. Otherwise, it's no better than a piece of paper on which it is written. So access to information is a must. We put in place a qualifications register. It is a web-based database containing information on quality assured qualifications and their respective learning programs. In a way, the Qualifications Register is the public face of the Hong Kong QF and is accessible by the public free of charge on the internet. As at end of February this year, over 7,600 quality assured academic and vocational qualifications involving around 210 education and training providers have been uploaded. Qualifications are outcome-based and are not confined to academic attainment. In the academic field, outcome standards at the lower level are tied to the school curriculum, and at the tertiary levels, set by scholars in the universities. These standards are pretty well developed. On the other hand, in the vocational field, outcome standards need to be developed. They are determined by members of the respective industry through a consensus-building process. Because in Hong Kong, we practice free economy, so there is huge diversity in the size, in the nature, and in the business line of different companies, even in the same sector. And since we aim for an industry-based competency standards, so it has to be built upon rather a bottom-up discussion. And therefore, we have spent considerable time and efforts in the past few years on assisting the industry to arrive at their respective outcome standards. The outcome standards are underpinned by competency standards at different levels. The industry, not the bureaucrats, knows best what it wants. Therefore, the government has been assisting industries in setting up their industry-specific advisory committees, known as the Industry Training Advisory Committees, or the ITAC in short. ITACs comprise representatives of employer associations, trade unions, professional bodies, and regulatory agencies of different industries. And they serve as a platform for stakeholders to work on the implementation of the QF in their own industries. The ITAC also provide a forum of exchange on the training needs and manpower requirements of the industries. So you can see when the Employers Association express their needs, well, hopefully through the forum, the training provider will get a better idea, so to speak, from the horse mouth, and then they develop something to tailor-make their training to suit industry needs. And as of February 2013, a total of 19 ITACs covering industries which employ nearly half of our total workforce have been established. The ITACs are tasked to draw up specifications of competency standards, or what we call SCS in short, for the relevant industries. So far, of the 19 ITACs, 12 have drawn up their own SCS. The SCS set up the skills, knowledge, and outcome standards required of employees in different functional areas, and provide a basis for course provider to design training courses to meet the needs. As the competency standards are developed with the participation of the industry, the relevance of the programs to the requirements of the industry can be assured. SCS also become the basis for the industries to map out clear progression pathways, whereby practitioners can draw up their own career development plans. Besides, as the SCS are gaining increasing acceptance by the employers, we notice that there are more and more companies using the SCS as a management tool for mapping their in-house training requirements, as well as managing their own human resources, for example, in decisions on staff recruitment and performance appraisal. ITACs also advise the government on the development of what we call recognition of prior learning, or what we call RPL mechanism. The aim is to recognize the experiences and competencies acquired by the practitioners at the workplace. It is a breakthrough in the confine of academic dominance. Why is this necessary? Because, as we just explained, the QF was born in the 21st century. But of course, in a lot of industries, there are already masters craftsmen. We cannot say that because they have not attained training in a classroom, their skills will be of no use. We have to provide them with incentive to also sort of make their own progression. And so, through an assessment, we recognize their achievements so far. So in a way, the RPL provides an alternative route for practitioners to receive formal recognition of the knowledge, skills, and experience that they have acquired in a practical way. And through the RPL, practitioners will feel that their experiences are of importance, and then, after the assessment, they can determine their own starting point and progression, and also reduce the duplication of the training that they need to go through. So in a way, it's a process of proactive engagement of the practitioners already in the field. ITES developed RPL mechanism based on SES, and as of February this year, the RPL mechanism has been implemented in 8 industries. Now I'd like to talk about the specification of generic or foundation competencies. Because apart from very specialized skills, we all know that in the workplace, generic skills are very important. They are essential to effective performance. So we have developed the specification of generic foundation competencies to cover 4 strands of generic skills, namely English, Chinese, that means languages commonly used in Hong Kong, information technology, and numeracy. The specification and the industry-specific SES complement each other in developing learning programs relevant to industry needs. Now I'd like to talk about our title scheme and the use of credit, which the Secretary for Education has briefly touched upon in his opening remarks. Training and qualifications in Hong Kong grew up in the past in a rather haphazard manner. As a result, there was hardly any standardization in the titles of qualifications and awards. This actually causes confusion to the learners. A high diploma in one institute may denote a different depth of learning from a high diploma in another institution. So for consistency and transparency, we introduced an award title schemes in October last year to simplify and standardize the award titles that could be used for qualifications at various levels under the QF. For instance, now, a qualification with diploma in the award title must be at QF level 3 or above. If it is below this benchmark, we would not allow it to be called diploma. It has to be sort of changed. At the same time, we have launched the use of QF credit, which is a measure of the volume or size of learning programs recognized under the QF. This will enable the learner to know the extent of time and effort required for training and acquisition of a certain qualification. One QF credit consists of 10 notional learning hours. Notional learning hours take into account the total time likely to be spent by a learner in all modes of learning, including both classroom learning and self-study at home. This is essential because one cannot become a master chef by studying in the classroom. You have to practice it in the kitchen. So in other words, notional learning time is not confined to timetable teaching or lecturing hours in the classroom. It comprises all forms of learning. QF credit is an essential element of the Hong Kong QF. It provides a common currency. It also helps promote modularized or bite-sized learning to suit the needs of learners, because some, due to family or personal commitments, can afford more time, and some less time, so they can pace their own learning according to their individual circumstances. Moreover, it can pave way for the development of a credit accumulation and transfer system, which I shall go into slightly more detail later. With the introduction of QF credit, the Hong Kong QF will become a more effective platform to facilitate lifelong and diversified learning. Now I'd like to look into the future. Stepping into 2013, we are going to celebrate the 5th anniversary of the Hong Kong Qualifications Framework. But still, the Hong Kong QF is a toddler. There is still much to do to make it healthy and strong. And to facilitate the building up of flexible and diversified study pathways with multiple entry and exit points, people require flexibility in the mode and pattern of learning. A credit accumulation and transfer mechanism, or CAT in short, will provide the requisite flexibility and minimize duplication in training. With the CAT system, learners can systematically accumulate the credits of learning and training gained from various courses and training, with a view to converting the accumulated credits into a recognized qualification. The Hong Kong QF provides a common platform and benchmark to facilitate CAT arrangements between sectors and training providers. And we are now working out the details to set up a CAT system under the Hong Kong QF. In 2009, Hong Kong implemented a new senior secondary curriculum as part of a wider reform of our academic system. Like the QF, the reform recognizes and embraces diversity in talents and interests. As part of the diversified curriculum, we have introduced courses known as applied learning to complement traditional academic disciplines. Applied learning comprises practical learning linked to broad professional and vocational fields. Let me cite some examples. For example, hairdressing, aircraft maintenance, car repair, even baking cakes. Yet at the same time, it pays equal emphasis on the development of knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Students grasp fundamental theories and concepts through application and practice. Generic skills are also developed in an authentic, industry-relevant context. And we are further exploring the feasibility of integrating the industry-specific competency standards drawn up by the EdTech and integrated with the curriculum design of the applied learning courses, so that students who may wish to choose applied learning courses will have a clearer idea of their possible progression pathway in the years to come. This to us can further assure the relevance of applied learning to the requirements of the industries. And hopefully, this will make us one step closer to our vision of forging a platform for the seamless transition among school education, training, and employment. This is not a cage, this is a monkey bar. So in a monkey bar, you can actually climb from one end to the other. And so this is the idea. So they can meander and climb in all angles, depending on their interest. As we know, interest and aptitude can change with time and with exposure. We now have 19 industry-specific ITECs. We shall continue to assist more industries to set up their ITECs under the Hong Kong QF. For those industries which have already set up their ITECs, the Financial Secretary has recently announced in his budget that 10 million Hong Kong per year will be allocated to support them to launch new initiatives. These new initiatives include, first, introducing award schemes for outstanding practitioners to engage in learning activities in different places around the world. Secondly, designing SES-based training programs and packages that meet the needs of the industries. And last but not least, stepping up promotion and publicity of the Hong Kong QF for its wider acceptance from all sectors. And let me here divulge a little bit and tell you the origin of the $10 million. It actually came up during a conversation between my hairstylist and me, because there was once a very promising boy, an apprentice, who washed my hair. And every time I would tip this boy rather generously. And then one fine day when I returned to, because my hair is so short, so I normally have my hair cut every 6 to 8 weeks. I revisited the hairdresser's place and found the boy gone. And the master barber in the shop told me that he had gone to Macau to be working at the gambling table. And I asked why. Because he said that he was cheesed off. He came up in the first few positions consecutively in 2 years in a Hong Kong-based competition. And he actually should have the chance of going to France and to America to enter an international competition. But because of lack of funds, he couldn't make it. And the master tried to solicit funds from a hair wig manufacturer. In the first year, it was successful. Second year, it was unsuccessful. And so the boy decided to go to Macau, where quick money can be made. But of course, regrettably, the boy has also picked up a gambling habit and was in debt. And this master hairstylist, being childless, took great care of the boy, and his wife also told me about some stories about it. And so I came back and talked to my colleagues, and we think that actually there are lots of SMEs in Hong Kong. And if the industries are doing well, we should give them the exposure, encourage them to develop training which fit the SES, and recognize those who may be not from very good, much well-to-do background, to actually gain exposure internationally and locally, and for the ITEC to promote themselves. And then and with the very generous support of the financial secretary and of course my boss, this came into being. And so while I'm saying that we are indeed a toddler, we feel for the way forward, but I think the one thing I can assure you that we may not do everything right, but our heart is always in the right place. And just now, I started off my speech with telling about globalization. And with globalization comes mobility and connectivity. And we shall continue to explore referencing and aligning the Hong Kong QF with QFs of other areas, so as to facilitate the mobility and articulation of people. The Memorandum of Understanding that we signed with the Scottish Credit and Qualifications Framework partnership last year is just the beginning. So thank you, Sandra. And as the Secretary of Education has mentioned, a letter of intent with the Guangdong Occupational Skills Testing Authority was also signed in May 2011 to explore the feasibility of cooperation. Besides, we're exploring cooperation with QFs in other places as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I have just made a brief account of how Hong Kong QF has come into place, what we have done so far, and what we plan to do ahead. The Hong Kong QF is still in its early days. The paradigm shift, seeking to put vocational and academic qualifications on par, has just begun. As we group for the way forward, we shall continue to draw reference from the experiences of QF development in other places. And the conference exactly presents a very good opportunity for us to learn from each other. We firmly believe that if we embrace diversity of talents and interests, there should be no failure. Everybody will be able to shine in their own ways. And we want to find a very healthy union of interest, aptitude, and hard work, so that each will shine in their own way. And last but not least, I wish you all a very fruitful conference, and I hope that you will do what my boss has asked you all to do, to spend time to feel Hong Kong for yourself, to feel why Hong Kong has earned the reputation of being a shopper's and a diner's paradise, and of course, contribute to our economy. Thank you.